Madeleine never imagined that heartbreak would become the doorway to her most radiant chapter. For years, her story had been defined by love, sacrifice, and the relentless pressure of living a relationship under the public eye. Fans watched her navigate the highs and lows, offering opinions, support, and sometimes harsh criticism. But what they didn't see, what no camera could fully capture, was the quiet transformation that was waiting to unfold within her. When the split finally happened, it felt, to many, like the end of a story. Headlines painted it as a dramatic collapse, a love story that couldn't survive the weight of expectations. But for Madeleine, it was something entirely different. It was not an ending, it was a beginning. At first, the silence was overwhelming. The absence of constant communication, the sudden shift from we to me, and the unfamiliar rhythm of independence created a space she didn't know how to fill. There were mornings when she woke up expecting things to feel normal, only to be reminded that her life had changed. There were nights when memories replayed themselves like scenes from a movie she couldn't pause. But somewhere in that stillness, something powerful began to grow. She started small. A walk in the morning turned into a daily ritual. What began as a way to clear her mind slowly became a sacred moment of connection with herself. She noticed the way the sunlight touched the streets, the rhythm of her breath, the quiet strength in simply putting one foot in front of the other. It was during these walks that she began to rediscover a version of herself that had been buried under expectations and compromise. Then came the changes people could see. Her social media began to shift, not dramatically at first, but subtly. The captions became more reflective. The smiles became more genuine. The glow people noticed wasn't just about makeup or lighting. It was something deeper, something rooted in healing. Fans started to take notice. "Something about her feels different," one comment read. "She looks happier than ever," said another. And they were right. Madeleine wasn't just moving on, she was evolving. She began exploring passions she had long set aside. There was painting, something she had loved as a child but abandoned in adulthood. At first, her brushstrokes were hesitant, unsure, but with time, they became bold, expressive, unapologetic. Each canvas told a story not of loss, but of rediscovery. She also found herself drawn to fitness, not as a way to change her appearance, but as a way to reconnect with her body. Strength training became more than just exercise, it became a metaphor. Every weight she lifted reminded her of her own resilience. Every drop of sweat felt like a release of everything she no longer needed to carry. But perhaps the most profound transformation happened internally. For the first time in a long time, Madeleine allowed herself to ask difficult questions. What did she truly want? What did happiness look like for her, not for the cameras, not for the audience, not for anyone else, but for her? The answers didn't come overnight. There were moments of doubt, moments when the past tried to pull her back. There were times when she questioned whether she had made the right decision, but instead of running from those feelings, she faced them. She learned to sit with discomfort. She learned that healing isn't linear. And most importantly, she learned that she was enough on her own. As weeks turned into months, the transformation became undeniable. Her style evolved, reflecting a newfound confidence. She experimented with bold colors, daring cuts, and looks that felt authentically hers. Fashion became another form of expression, a way to show the world that she was no longer confined by anyone else's expectations. Her smile changed too. It was no longer the kind that sought approval, it was the kind that came from within, effortless and real. And then there was her energy. People who met her in person described it as magnetic. She carried herself with a sense of peace that couldn't be faked. It wasn't about perfection, it was about authenticity. She began using her platform in a different way as well. Instead of focusing solely on curated moments, she started sharing pieces of her journey, not the polished version, but the real one, the messy, complicated, beautiful process of rebuilding a life. She talked about heartbreak. She talked about growth. She talked about the importance of choosing yourself, even when it's hard. Her words resonated. Messages poured in from people who saw themselves in her story. Women who had stayed too long in relationships that no longer served them. Individuals who were afraid to start over. People who needed a reminder that life doesn't end when something falls apart, it begins again. Madeleine became more than just a reality TV personality. She became a symbol of resilience. But what made her journey so powerful wasn't just the transformation, it was the honesty behind it. She never claimed to have everything figured out. She didn't pretend that the pain didn't exist. Instead, she showed that you can carry your scars and still shine. One of the most defining moments of her post-split journey came during a solo trip she took months after the breakup. It was spontaneous. A decision made on a whim, fueled by a desire to step outside her comfort zone. She traveled alone, something she had never done before. There was something both terrifying and exhilarating about navigating a new place without relying on anyone else. And it changed her. She discovered the joy of her own company. She learned that she didn't need someone else to complete experiences for them to be meaningful. Sitting alone at a cafe, watching the world go by, she realized that she was no longer waiting for life to happen, she was living it. That trip became a turning point. When she returned, there was a clarity in her that hadn't been there before. She wasn't just healing anymore. She was thriving. Her career began to reflect that shift as well. Opportunities started to align with the person she was becoming. She collaborated with brands that resonated with her values, projects that allowed her to express her creativity, and initiatives that gave her a sense of purpose beyond fame. But even as her external life flourished, she remained grounded in the lessons she had learned. She prioritized her mental health. She set boundaries. She surrounded herself with people who uplifted her rather than drained her. And perhaps most importantly, she stopped settling. Love, once a central focus of her life, became something she approached differently. She no longer viewed it as something she needed to complete her. Instead, she saw it as something that should complement her already full life. She became more selective, more intentional. And for the first time, she understood that being alone wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. Her fans continued to watch, but now, the narrative had changed. This wasn't a story about a breakup. It was a story about rebirth. Photos of her began to circulate, radiant, confident, undeniably transformed. The comments shifted from sympathy to admiration. "She's glowing. This is the happiest I've ever seen her. She didn't just move on, she leveled up." And in many ways, she had. But not in the superficial sense people often associate with transformation. Her glow wasn't just about appearance.